Hello, it's been a while. I have not recorded one of these in a long time. I tried doing a couple with some friends, but I decided that I like the format of me talking to myself, rambling a lot better, just because I felt the urge to cut everything down to be concise. When here, I really don't, because everything I say is based, so why would I ever cut out some of the gospel, you know? I don't think Jesus thought, man, this book too fucking long. Cut out some of the bad bits. No, it was not, in fact, too long. I know Jesus didn't write the Bible. I'm not fucking stupid. Don't worry. Anyways, but yeah, I decided last night to make another slideshow, and this one's about how not to be stupid in games because I've noticed in the past 5.5 years of playing games, people are fucking dumb. People are stupid. There's a million more ways to be stupid than there is to be smart. It's really, really hard to find a new way to be smart, but it's easy to find new ways to be stupid in Survivor. And obviously, as the most intelligent man on planet Earth and the number one authority on how to be smart and how to not be stupid, I think I have things to show that I believe to be true, and I think that even if you disagree, there is truth in what I'm saying, and I believe that I provide an intelligent viewpoint on how to play the game. And I think this better explains some of my vocabulary when I'm playing games. And the two people that listen to the end, I think, will be able to communicate much better, at least to me, but I also think to other people. And it's very, very important to how you think about the game as well. Without further ado, this is structured into a couple parts. The early slides are very, very broad and general, just about easy topics like the preseason and the pre-merge. But then once we hit the quote-unquote merge section, then I get into the more detailed aspects of how not to throw Survivor and stupid mistakes I see people make. And what I believe a good attitude to think about the merge is. However, these apply to the entire game. It's just that it's easier to talk about in the merge section because it's oversimplified and it's able to be discussed without all the nuance that, oh, but what if we win the next challenge? And, oh, what if they vote out so-and-so? Yada, yada, yada. And so, yeah, the first thing you should do to not be stupid is to avoid making stupid mistakes. The first thing you want to do is I want to declare some assumptions that we're talking about, because what I'm going to mention in the future does not make sense unless we make a couple assumptions. The things I'm saying are not true if everyone is not playing to win. If somebody is not playing to win, then you could throw all the logic in the world at them, and they're not going to give a shit. You can throw all the reasoning in the world, and they're just going to either vote randomly or vote emotionally or vote whatever the fuck, because they don't care. And I'm not saying that it's bad to not play to win. I think it's fun to play to win. I think that in competitive lobbies you should play to win. But there's a lot of reasons to play Survivor for not that are not playing to win. You could just be playing to fuck around. You could just be playing for your friend, which I don't think that's very, very fair, but you can do that. Maybe you just want to play to have friends. I don't judge people for what they do online. And this includes people that only decide they aren't playing to win the moment they start losing, because for the time until they start losing, they are playing to win. So I'm going to assume people that are playing to win are capable of making these stupid mistakes and how they should not. What I'm saying is not true if people aren't playing optimally. If people are literally just doing things that they know are stupid to see how stupid they are, then yeah, you're not going to convince them to do smart things. Maybe you could convince them that your play is even stupider, which, this kind of sounds like reverse psychology. But yeah, again, I'm going to assume going forward that everybody's playing to win. They're playing as optimally as they can. and everybody else is trying to do the same. Everybody in the game is following these things, because if people are trolling, then you're not going to find success with these tips. But assuming you are in a logical game, here's how not to throw Survivor. And the first place you want to avoid making mistakes is in the preseason. There you go. I didn't fuck up the transition. I made these slides at like 4 a.m. last night. If you can tell from my voice, I'm dead inside. The first mistake, or the first sort of thing you want to try to do, is you want to try and pick good lobbies with a good host. I know that's easier said than done, but I believe it is not beneficial, and therefore a little bit of a mistake, to try and try hard in games where you know that the assumptions I made previously will not follow. This, as I wrote, this helps accomplish the everyone else is competent prerequisite. If everybody else isn't trying, or if they're trolling, or if they're just fucking around with their friends, or if they're toxic, or whatever reason why the lobby isn't good, you're gonna be very, very, what's the term? Not motivated. You're gonna be very, very sort of beat down when your smart plays don't work. It's not because your plays aren't smart, it's because everybody else isn't. And so, disheveled was the word I was thinking of. You're going to be very, very disheveled. So, if you're trying to get good at Survivor and trying to win Survivor, I would pick good lobbies. Because the better other people are, the better you can get. You know, there's only so many games you can win playing with the same 12 shitters. So, yeah, try and get into good lobbies and prove that you're good. Again, I also think you will become a better player, and it is a mistake to your overall Survivor health if you load up with your friends. Sure, loading up with your friends can get you some wins in the short term, but in the long term, you're not really playing Survivor if a third of the lobby is your gang. It's also good to create a healthy rivalry with your friends. Being able to vote off your friends and still be good with them is, I think, very, very important. Because if your friends only are friends with you because they work with you in the Survivor, then I don't think they're really your friends. I think that's true for, a lot of things. I think that you should have friends that are with you no matter what and are not contingent on things, because otherwise they're using you. And as I said, it's obviously impossible to not know anyone in the game. Like, it's very, very rare that you load up in a game and you know absolutely nobody. And those games are really, really fun when they do happen. But I'm not saying that, like, if any of your friends are in the game, don't load up with them. But don't actively try and say, I'm only playing this game if I have, like, 4 people I know I have. Because that's bullshit. You're not playing Survivor. I also think it's important to enter the game with an open mind. And it's a really stupid mistake to just assume things are true that are not. Now, that doesn't mean, be naive, be clueless. Like, if you know that people in the game are your ops, expect them to be your ops. But also, things may appear different to how they actually are. Maybe people don't see you as much of an op as you see them. And also, maybe somebody that fucked you over last game, like, really wants to work with you this game because they don't want to always be in that cycle of fucking you over. Playing each season as an extension of a previous one usually means you spend your entire game seeking revenge against people that don't give a shit about you. And I see so many people, especially newer players, follow this fucking, I don't want to say his name, follow the Aries Pink style of playing the social ladder instead of playing Survivor, where every sort of game is trying to build yourself up and beat down the people that fucked you over in the past. We play this game for so many better reasons than that. Do not do that. Do not play each game as if it's just like the last one, part 2, where I get another chance to vote out the guy that fucked me over. If I played the game like that, then I would have no fucking allies, no friends, because everybody is fucking me over at some point, and everyone's worked with me at some point, because that's how Survivor works. It's not just an instant snap your fingers and you get a new game. We have to work with each other. And at first I thought that it's a problem with the game, is that you can't have games where it's all new. But I think that over time I've realized that part of the skill of being a good player is to be open-minded and to be able to work with people that don't like you or that don't like how you play. And so I think it's another form of skill expression, and it's something to differentiate Minecraft Survivor from real Survivor, which I think is cool. Anyways, there's a lot of stupid mistakes you can make in the pre-merge. And one of the stupid mistakes is not winning challenges. I understand it's like, oh yeah, big whoop. The challenge guy tells you to win challenges, but it really is important. And this, when I say try to win challenges, this includes keeping people on your tribe that will win you challenges. That's important. And obviously, I'm saying that because it benefits me. However, it's also true. And the reason I win challenges is because it is true. Like, I am a very, very hot commodity in the pre-merge because I will win you challenges. And no matter how safe you feel in your tribe, the only way to guarantee safety is through immunity. I bet a lot of people that vote off pre-merge assumed they were safe the round before. If you don't win challenges, you're more likely to get swap fucked just because of numbers. Let's say you're going into a swap of 15 and you're down, 9-6. That means you get a 50% more chance of getting swap fucked. You're way more likely to be in the minority. I don't actually know if that's how the stats work because I've not done the stats. And it's been a couple years since I was in a math class, so I don't think I could do them anymore. But you're more likely to get swap fucked if you're in the minority, obviously. And also, if you get to merge in a super minority, like 2-to-1 ratio, role players will think that you're a threat for having a quote-unquote great story. But in actuality, I think you're less of a threat because you have had less of an impact on the jury members because you haven't played most of the game with them, and so they don't really have the insight into your game that they do with other people that were on their tribes. But people will still say, "Hey, they were down in numbers into merge. Think of their story." Oh my fucking god, people are dumb. That's a quick tangent. Don't vote people to win or vote people out because of their quote unquote great story. That's like what people say to like amputees in Survivor. It's like fucking Noelle. They were like, "Oh man, Noelle's got such a great story." It's like, what the fuck? Like, oh my god, it's horrible. Don't do that. It's belittling. And it's also winning challenges means you get time to think and plan, and also go to the bathroom and take care of yourself. That's important. It really is. Like, you will make mistakes if you do not have some downtime. Just a fact of the game. Also, another thing that people do in the pre-merge that they should not do is that they don't try and make friends. It's very, very important to, even if like you think you know people in your tribe, hang out, have a good time. If you're active, people want to vote you less. Silent people are usually really, really easy targets. It gets your head in the game. The more you're having fun, the more you're talking to people, the more you want to play the game, the more you're active in the strategy. And so I've played a lot of games where I just know that, oh fuck, I don't give a fuck about it. Even recorded, I've been like, I just really don't care right now. Like, I did this because I agreed to it. And that's because I wasn't actively trying to make friends. And granted, a lot of times in recordeds I have a hard time sleeping before. So that's several reasons, but the games that I've had the most fun are other ones where I'm hanging out, I'm trying to make friends, I'm talking to people, and the more fun you have, the more likely you're willing to do good. So try and win challenges and try to make friends. Additionally, you want to use messaging appropriately. Believe me, everybody will know if you're spamming everyone in the tribe with useless. Hey, how's it going? How's it going? What do you think about this? What do you think about that? Oh, good. I good doing this. Oh, I really liked how you did that. Oh, you were great in the challenge. Everybody will know if you're messaging everybody. Some people think, oh, I'm the fucking social mastermind because I've got the fastest fingers. Holy shit, people are not that stupid. They will know if you're messaging everybody, and it's fine if you message everybody. But I think it's better for your long-term game to message people when it provides value to yourself and it establishes your position in the tribe. If you want to make an alliance with somebody, mention DM them. Obviously, you probably shouldn't do this out of the blue, but like, let's say you're talking to somebody in the chat, and then in a downtime when you're not, you message them, "Hey, by the way, you're chill. I want to work with you." That's a completely fine message to send. In recordeds, this is a really, really important skill because everyone's so scared to say names. The sooner you start establishing yourself in your tribe, the better. Like, I feel like in most recordeds I play, I already have a good amount of people I know I'm going to work with, before we lose the challenge. And some of you are going to be surprised when I say that you should do the next thing because it doesn't sound like something I would do. But it doesn't mean what you'd think it means. And when I say you should play conservatively in the pre-merge, that doesn't mean play like a bitch. It doesn't mean, just play scared, do whatever it takes to get to merge. You should play to conserve your assets for merge. And by asset, I mean if you have a really good alliance or a really good ally in particular, try and keep that ally to merge. Don't just immediately. If somebody says, "Hey, I think we should buff so and so," don't throw away your game to help that person, but try and keep them in the game because they're going to help you in the merge. If you have an idle and advantage, why did I write 2 keep that to merge? I wrote this and I was really fucking tired. Try to keep that to merge. Because you're going to have a lot more use out of that idle or advantage if you keep it to merge. That being said, if you need to use the idle, use the idle. It's okay to be towards the bottom of the tribe in terms of people aren't going to work with you, as long as there's more people under you. Like, it's okay to not have control if people are going to be voted off before you. Granted, you don't know when merges, so eventually you might get to be the point where you are the next to go. But as long as you keep winning challenges, that's not going to be a problem. Although you need to play conservatively, you also need to strike a balance by playing aggressively. And, it doesn't mean play like a jackass, but play to keep yourself in the running. It doesn't matter if you make merge if you're in a horrible position to play the game from then. If a move is necessary for your game, it's never too early. If you see somebody is completely, fucking you over and is going to be a massive problem come merge, and you can take him out, try to take him out. It's never too early to make the move that will win you the game. If somebody's not going to listen to you in the pre-merge, they're not going to listen to you in the merge. And so, just because they're on your tribe doesn't mean that, it's good to keep them into the merge portion of the game. And if you must utilize an idle or an advantage or just a move in general to win the game, you got to do so without hesitation. You do not want to play the shoulda, woulda, coulda. Like, I could have done this. I could have done this. Oh, in the pre-merge, man, I could have taken out Jimmy, and then Jimmy fucked me over in the later parts of the game. No, you should make the smart move when it is smart to do so. And a lot of times in the pre-merge, that's just coasting and just sitting on your ass and getting to merge and then playing the game. That's usually the right play to make, but there are situations where you need to make these moves, especially if you're the target. Then you have to make these moves, otherwise you're going to go home. And I think that good players can get to merge and in a good position and play the game from there. Great players can get to merge from horrible positions and can nickel and dime their way to the middle of the game and go from there. It's really, really hard to save yourself pre-merge compared to merge, because nobody wants to make a cool move pre-merge because they just want to get to the end. They just want to get to merge. They just want to yada, 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 play the game later. It's really, really hard to save yourself, but it can be done. Anyways, people make really stupid mistakes when it comes to their allies. And what I'm about to say is true. You might think of counterexamples, but I believe that those fall under edge cases, which I'll talk about. An alliance only functions properly when it is mutually beneficial to all parties, and we'll talk a bit more about when something's mutually beneficial later. If an alliance is not mutually beneficial, as in both people are benefiting from it, someone is being played. And you might be thinking, "Oh, me and him, it's good for both of us. It's good for both of us." That is not necessarily true. You could easily be getting played, and odds are there's at least one alliance you have per game where you are being played, or you are doing the playing. And it's up to you and the other person to determine which is which. And that means that when you're making allies, you should argue why it's mutually beneficial for both of you, because that will be persuasive. If you just mention why it's good for the other person, you're telling them what they want to hear. And sometimes that will work, but a lot of times you should mention, "Hey, this is good for me because this is good for you because this, we should work together." That to me is very, very persuasive. And also, an alliance is not a concrete thing. If you make an alliance, and you betray that later, like, people will call you a traitor. People will say, "Oh, fuck you, you rat," yada, 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 yada. But alliances will change on a round-to-round basis. If someone votes with you in one round, they're not obliged to follow suit the next. That being said, if people, change allies, if you're in a mutually beneficial alliance, it doesn't mean that automatically you should abandon that whenever. keep it until it no longer becomes mutually beneficial. And we'll get to that in the next round, the next slide. You also want to pick reliable allies, and this is a mistake I see people do. Even good players, I think, make this mistake. And that's smart people are usually more predictable than stupid people. Granted, smart people are also more likely to know what they have to do to screw you over, but you will be able to predict what they are going to do, which is really, really valuable. You really should not rely on goats. You might think you're a really, really good goat whisperer. There's a lot of people that are really, really good at controlling people that don't know what they're doing. But there will always be a better shepherd than you. There's so like you can never rely on people that have no sense of logic, because there will be somebody that tells them what they want to hear even more. Like even mid round, I remember in fucking Tunics All Stars at the final 9, we had 6 people. 2 of them were goats. It was fucking this guy called Jamie and Skylar, and we got them to vote with us in a 3-3 split vote between Sam and Vision, so that we could flush Sam's idol. Sam didn't play the idol, and then Double messaged them, "Hey, can you vote with us to vote for Llama, please? Thank you." No logic, no, "Hey, this is why you should do this." They went to fucking Rocks for for Rocks, for the guy that had a fucking idol and Vision, who were like completely dominating the game up to that. It's fucking infuriating. And when asked why, Jamie said, "Oh, he wasn't really paying attention. He was going to get headache medication. When he came back, he saw the message and just decided to do that." And I didn't really ask Skylar why she wanted to do it, but I can't imagine there was a good reasoning. This was a fucking all-star game too. That made the game so much more annoying. We could have had fucking Sam should have played his idol, and we could have had Vision out. Was what should have happened. But Sam's fucking stupid, anyways. Yada 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 yada. Emotional players are more likely to spiral and fuck you over. Pick good allies that are rational. Obviously, take what you can get, but those are what I would recommend picking. You should also choose your allies per round according to your position. Now, a lot of times this will stay the same, and we'll go into positioning later because, spoiler alert, it's the best way to play the game. Thinking about this. But a lot of times, the people that you're working with, you'll continue to work with until it's no longer mutually beneficial. We'll get to that in the next slide. But if your position radically changes, then you should choose different allies per round. If one game you are in a good position to win the game, you should pick what benefits you. But if another round you're somewhat lower in the pecking order, then you should choose different allies. And we'll get to that later. And I'll go more into detail about that. Another mistake people make is they rely on trust. An ally that is only your ally because they trust you is not a good ally, and we'll get to that right now. No, we'll not. We'll get to my transitions are so I have lost all my aura that I had, which was very little, but I fucked up. I thought, okay, whatever. We'll get to that later. Here we'll get to why mutually being an alliance is mutually beneficial later. Anyways, yeah, don't rely on trust. We'll get to that later. Yeah. More details about being mutually beneficial. Survivor is an individual game that requires you to compromise with others, and that's why it's interesting. It wouldn't be fun if it was just work with these people because you have to, and they're working for you and you're working for them. Many people can win. It's an individual game. Only one person can win. People will not let you get away with everything that you want every single round. Some people play like that, where the moment something goes wrong, oh no, the game's over. Fuck. A huge skill in Survivor is being able to win the game from any position, from the top, from the bottom, because although you might be on the bottom in terms of votes, you might be on the top in terms of win equity. And we'll get to that later in the positioning part. But another huge skill is figuring out what you want that other people also want, because that is what you should go for per round. There might be somebody that you want out and that nobody else does. You should not go for them because people won't let you. You should find out what other people want that you want and then compromise. Symbiosis. is a good word for it. Sort of comparing it to biology. Symbiosis is the girl is the girl. Excuse me, is the goal. You should go for an alliance that benefits you, benefits them. One example is the shield dynamic, and this is only for people in a high position in the game. There's others for the low position, like even just saying that, hey, we're both towards the bottom of the pecking order, we should work together because we want to sit next to each other in FTC. That's an example of symbiosis. But another good one is the obvious good one is the shield dynamic, and I think that that's a really stupid way to phrase it. I think a better way to call it is solidarity. If two people are big targets, they would want to keep each other in the game as quote unquote shields. But what that really means is, as long as we're in the game together, we're stronger than if we are separate. We can win in the end really, really easily. Maybe not against each other, but against these other people we can. It's about getting to the end, and we can help each other get to the end, despite the fact that we don't want to sit next to each other in the end. So you can call that a shield, you can call that whatever. I call it, we are helping each other. We are holding strong solidarity, despite the fact that we, on paper, should be at each other's throats. Your alliances should be stronger together than the sum of their parts. That is a good way to sum it up. If you are carrying your alliance and they're only with you to hitch a ride, then they're not necessary for your long-term game, and you should cull the votes that you know you don't need because they will vote against you soon. If somebody trusts you, we'll get to trust later, but if somebody trusts you, you've made an alliance with them, you've declared that it's mutually beneficial one round, and then the next round, it's no longer beneficial to you, you should not be obliged to keep them because they're using you. You should not be squirmish about voting people that you worked with one round when it was mutually beneficial, when it no longer is. And one alliance that should 100% be mutually beneficial is the Final 3/Final 2 deal. The only Final 3 deal you should pursue is a best case scenario for all parties. So many people say, oh, we had a Final 3, yada, yada, yada. The only one that matters is one where everybody in it will follow suit. Because anything other than that means that somebody is being played. There is no, mutually beneficial Final 3 if there's a better one. It's not like, oh, this is good, there's a better one, but this one's still good. No, if it is not the perfect one, it is not good. Obviously, if you tell somebody, hey, want to go to the Final 3, they'll agree to anything. But they will only follow through if they have no better option. And so there's no point in making a Final 3 if you're the biggest threat in the game. I never make Final 3 deals. I never go, hey, we should make it to the Final 3, unless I know that it is the only optimal way for the final 3 people to make it to the end. If I'm in a position where I can only win against 2 other people, and those 2 other people can only win against me, then I go up to them and say, hey, we need to be the Final 3. Usually I'm not in that position, but it's an important thing to distinguish. If you waste your time making Final 3s that don't matter, instead of making good alliances that do, then you're going to be worse off in the game, in my opinion. And I mentioned it a couple times earlier, but you really should not make alliances based solely off of trust, which is why I say trust and why it's pointless. Trust is a really, really fickle thing because we use it. And I use it. I say, like, oh, I trust you to do this. I trust you that, yada, yada, yada. But it's how we think about it that the devil's in the details there. I see trust as faith. And this is what I'm trying to argue against. I think that if you have faith in somebody, then you are placing your trust in the wrong place. You should have trust in people's logic. You should have trust in their decision making. If I say I trust you to do this, I'm saying I trust you to be smart enough to realize that what I'm saying is correct, and that therefore you will follow suit. That's not me saying I trust you arbitrarily. And so it's a fickle word, but when I say trust is pointless, I mean that what I'm about to mention is pointless. Everybody is trying to win the game, and therefore trust is finite. If multiple people could win the game, then you could trust somebody to the end of the game, the end of the earth, and this is why in Blood versus Water this is the case, because Blood versus Water is kind of the experiment of what if You were not playing to win, you're playing for you or your partner to win. Then it's a more interesting game because trust is infinite. You should always tell your partner pretty much everything in blood versus water, because if either of you wins the game, it's kind of a dub. Faith in somebody having your best interest will always follow their best interests. So there will always be a point in the game where it's necessary for either you to break trust or someone to break trust with you to win the game, because it's an individual game. And so using trust at the final four especially is so fucking stupid. If you're the biggest threat in the game and you should say, hey guys, didn't you trust me the entire time? Who gives a shit? Like, we'll get more on that later in terms of precedent. But trust is really arbitrary and emotional. People decide to trust people for whatever reasons. Hey, I like you, so I want to trust you. And I don't like you, so I don't trust you. And, everybody's a human. Everybody is what's it called, emotional. And so, yeah, I decide who I want to work with based off of this, too. Later in the game, I am not blinded by trust, but early in the game, if you're trying to get some allies, trust is a really, really good way to do it. But the problem is it is finite and it's arbitrary, and it also relies on other people's morality. So there's a time and place for trust, but once you get to the end game, or even just the mid game, it's really, really stupid to rely on people just because, we trust each other. And I have this quote: whenever somebody says, hey, I trusted you, you swore on your whatever. You swore on your family, you swore on your God, you swore on your promise, yada, yada, yada. Your word, yada, yada. I don't give a fuck. That person obviously cares much more about that something than the person who just fucked them in the ass. Like, saying, in Real Survivor, an example I think of is Kagiyan, where Trish is really mad at Tony at FTC, saying, you swore on your father's grave. Trish, you clearly give a lot more of a shit about Tony's dead father than Tony does. Like, or not really the dead father in particular, but the concept of lying on somebody's dead father. Like, Tony clearly is willing to do that and not give a shit about it. You do. And so you played yourself by assuming that Tony would believe, by believing Tony, assuming that Tony would take you to the end because of that. So yada, yada, yada. Trust also relies on precedent, but it breaks down at the end game. And this is what I say, like, it's okay to work with people in the pre-merge or maybe even the early merge because, I trust you. Because if somebody's worked with you in the past, it makes no difference if they can't be in your FTC. If you're at the final five and somebody's worked with you the entire game but needs to go, they need to go. It's like, who gives a shit if they trusted you beforehand? And also, if someone's been against you and not worked with you the entire time, it makes no difference if they have to be in your FTC. If the only way you could win is with them, then you must take them to the end. Doesn't matter how much you distrust them. And I think that we'll get more into later on how it intermingles with positioning, but there is a time and place for trust, but relying just solely on it is really, really stupid. And this is my biggest pet peeve when I hear people, and I heard a lot of it in Pandas the other day from a couple people, and that really just fucking, it's so not persuasive when you say, trust me, bro, trust me, bro, trust me, bro, versus giving a solid argument. And the way to give a solid argument is by analyzing and talking about your position in the game. And this is why I wrote in parentheses, how to win Survivor, because this is really sort of the bread and butter in my eyes of how to win the game from a strategic point of view, how to get to the end in a good position to win, which is the goal of Survivor. Positioning is kind of like, it's not really it's hard to describe because it's sort of a thought process in my eyes on how to win the game, how to think about the game. So the way I think about it, and other people can think about it in similar ways or even different ways, but come to the same conclusions. The way I think about it is it's a malleable ranking of who will beat who in FTC, independent of current alliances. So that means you can be on the bottom of the game, as in you do not have a lot of allies at one point in time. You were in the minority, but you're on top of all the jury lists, and vice versa. You could be voting in the majority every single round. Technically, you're on top of the game, but you could have no way to win the game in terms of the jury. And so that's not if you have to look at who's on top, who's on bottom at any given moment, that's not a good way of analyzing the game versus a ever-changing sort of ladder of threats. Someone's a bigger threat than someone who's a bigger threat than someone down to the lowest threat. And this changes through the game depending on the events of the season, obviously. It's not just you start the game, you're the biggest threat. No, you develop your position on the ranking depending on how you play the game. And this is an oversimplification, obviously. Everybody in their head has a different ladder of what is the case. There's not one true correct, this is the case. But it adjusts itself to fit any situation. And what I mean by that is, let's say you have a situation where A will beat B, B will beat C, C will beat A. Each person individually has their own ladder. And so they have to argue to each other that their ladder is correct versus each other's. And whoever's the best at arguing that will come up on top. Literally, we had this situation in the rock paper scissors game that Joe hosted like a year ago. I forgot when it was. Where at the final 6 we had 2 rocks, 2 papers, 2 scissors, and I forget what I think I was a scissor, and we got one of the rocks voted off, which was really, really good for me. The thought process behind positioning is an attempt to provide objectivity from subjectivity. Everybody subjectively thinks, oh, so-and-so's a threat, so-and-so's a threat, I like so-and-so's game, I think I'd vote for so-and-so. But they don't really have a finite, discrete way of presenting this information. Everybody has their own idea of what's going on, but you must find the objective as you can get, shared truths. And this goes back to, the idea of compromisation, being mutually beneficial, making good deals, yada, yada, yada. When you talk about the position, as in so-and-so's in a higher position than me, you are trying to go up to another person and say, hey, we might have different ideas on the game, but we can both agree that so-and-so is in a good spot to win the game. Or so-and-so is in this position. So-and-so is in this position, yada, yada, yada. You can talk about how somebody's on top. They are going to win every single jury vote they get to. Or somebody's on the bottom. They're not going to win any jury vote. And you can argue why you should vote so-and-so out in any position in the game. And you just have to agree on the prerequisites with other people and argue with them and come to a conclusion that both of you can agree with. And instead of relying on other people's morality, you rely on other people's logic. And this goes back to what I said about when I say I trust you, it's I trust your logic. I trust your reasoning. If somebody needs you for your game or they 100% lose, that is the most effective way of getting their vote. You can talk about, oh, we work together so well this game. We've been in it for forever. We're best friends. The only way to guarantee that someone will vote for you is if they need to win the game. That's just true. Like, you could argue all of what I'm saying is bullshit and it's just my opinion, yada yada. To me, this is just factual. The only way to guarantee, unless, well, I guess you could kidnap someone's family, and that's probably a better way of getting their vote. But the only way to 100% make it so that an optimal player is going to vote with you is if you make it to be their best move. And positioning is built on precedent rather than relying on precedent. It's not the case of, oh, I trust you, and so since we trusted you before, you have to trust me now. Positioning, or the thought process behind it, is saying that because of what happened earlier in the game, this is what will happen now, and this is what will happen later. And this continues through to final tribal council, which means it doesn't break down like trust does. At the final 4, you can talk about, hey, this person is in the best position to win the game, and therefore we need to vote them out. And final 4 is, the most obvious example of this, but this is true throughout the entire game. Even at the first merge vote, let's say there's 13 people left in the game. You can grab a group of people together and say, hey, this person is in this position, whether it's a good position to win, a bad position to win, a middle position to win. Usually it's somewhere in the middle. You say, hey, this person's in this position. I think it's optimal for a lot of us to take this person out. And this is true throughout the entire game. And it's built on what happens before. You could say this person is less likely to win the game because of all the shit they did before. And so we should take them out because they take up a spot in FTC. And you should pitch this to people that are having a hard time of getting to FTC, typically people on top of the position. And obviously, your head's probably going in circles, yada yada, because I make no sense. I have a little bit of a graphic, not really a graphic. Oh fuck, never mind. I don't have. My aura is so gone. I completely forgot what fucking order I put this slideshow in. I'll have a graphic later on exactly what I mean and a sort of ladder, a simplification, an example of what I mean by top, bottom, middle, yada yada yada, and what good decisions are. Anyways, I want to talk a little bit more about the combination of trust and positioning. And a good way to think about it is this quote from the Italian Job: "I trust everyone, I just don't trust the devil inside them." And that to me is really, really cool because it implies that, like, yeah, I trust you from an emotional level, but I don't trust your logic in knowing that you shouldn't trust me. Trust and positioning, when they combine, there is value in previous successful deals. So I'm not saying if somebody's worked with you the entire game, you should keep working with them as long as it works out, because that shows that they're reliable, they're predictable, and it allows you to show your value. I'm not saying you should just throw away your allies each round and make new ones. You can play like that. It's really fun to play like that, but you should be able to build a repertoire with somebody, or rapport, not repertoire. Rapport is the word, different French word. And there's value in future deals. If you say, hey, I'll work with you this round if you work with me in the future, that is a way to get played, but it also is a way to make people work with you. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. If we work together this round, we should work together in future rounds. And as I mentioned before, logical arguments will always be more persuasive than arbitrary requests for trust. Emotional players are more likely to throw away valuable resources because they don't trust somebody. You could need someone to win the game, but I don't trust them. I need to vote them. I need to vote them. I need to vote them. Strong players will be able to dictate why their moves make the most sense. So even if I don't trust you to have my best interests at all down the line, or previously you've won me out, later you'll want me out. Even if it's just this round we need to work together, then we need to work together, and strong players will be able to realize that. Anyway, now we have the part I mentioned earlier, except I was too stupid to remember that I fucking forgot a slide. Here we have an oversimplification of the positions. And as I mentioned, everybody has their own individual one. This is just an arbitrary, this is true, everyone agrees it to be true, yada yada. You never see this in a game, but for the sake of argument, it's really overcomplicated if I make a different one for each of these 9 players. So we've got 9 players. We've got Bob, who's most likely to win an FTC, down to Rocker, who's the biggest goat and will never win any FTC. So what I want you to do is think about what you should do at this part in the game, completely devoid of previous trust and previous alliances, yada, yada, yada. These matter in the actual game. Again, this is a simplification. What should you do from a positional standpoint if you are Stacy? Now, if you're Stacy, you have 4 people above you in the pecking order that will beat you in FTC. You have 4 people that you can beat in FTC. Now, a naive player will see, there's a bunch of people that'll beat me in FTC. I'm going to make an alliance with the people under me, vote off all the threats. So yada. Let's say you do that, and now you're at the top of the pecking order, and you don't have the votes to keep yourself in the game. Now, this isn't necessarily a bad position. We'll get into later when this could be a good position. But typically, assuming that you don't have idols or challenge wins, this is really bad. You don't want to be putting yourself into this position where at the final 5, you're shut out of luck. Likewise, you don't want to say, hey, I want to make it the FTC. I'm going to vote off all the people that will take up spots in FTC because, let's say you vote off 2 people, then all of a sudden you're in a position where you can only beat Jimmy and Craig in an FTC, but you can't get to the FTC with them because the other 4 people will vote one of you out, probably you. And let's say you succeed in voting out Jimmy and Craig, you're left being the GOAT. So you have to keep people underneath you that you can beat in the end, but you also want to make sure that you have enough power in your given position to win the game. And here, Stacy isn't completely out of it. Stacy can convince Obama to make some plays, or convince Rachel, Joe, or Bob to make some plays. But this is typically not very good for the bottom 3 people in the game. So what should Stacy do? There's not a concrete answer, and that's why Survivor is really, really good. But typically, you're going to want to get to the final 5 with 2 people from these 4 and 2 people from the bottom 4. So if you think about it, let's say you're in the final 4 with Bob and Rachel, in the final 5 rather, with Bob and Rachel and Craig and Rocker. I just happened to pick the odd numbers, I don't know why. That's good for you because you're in a position where Craig and Rocker will want to vote with you to take out Bob and Rachel, and you can still beat Craig and Rocker in the final final 3. If you think back to this position, that's the position that Craig is in here, where Craig can beat Jane and Rocker, but he has the numbers with Jane and Rocker to take out Stacy and Jimmy. So, yeah, that is the goal you should want to be in the final 5. Assuming that there's no challenges, assuming that there's no idols, yada, yada, yada. Those fuck everything up. We'll get to those later. The thing is, it's also true for Obama. Obama wants to be in the final 5 with 2 of Bob, Joe, and Rachel, and 2 of Stacy, Jimmy, Craig, Jane, and Rocker. And so he should make decisions based on that, how he can get to the end. And so if you think here, Obama probably doesn't want to vote off one of Bob, Joe, or Rachel at the final 9, because that means he has to get to the final 5 with the other 2. And if he does that, then he's really, really taking a risk, because what if one of them gets voted off? Then all of a sudden he's too big for his britches. So he wants to take off somebody underneath him. So let's say, yeah, he gets some numbers together to vote off Stacy. Wait a minute, the next round comes, and Obama, since Obama just made a big move, he's on top of the pecking order. He exceeded Joe and Rachel in the pecking order because he made a big flashy move and taking out Stacy, that people now want to vote for him more. So all of a sudden, the positions change, and now we have an entirely new circumstance. And that to me is why Survivor is really, really cool, because it's like attempting to snipe a moving target in the fog from X rounds away, where nobody agrees on where the target is. You want to end up in a final 3 that you can win, except you don't know if you can win that final 3 until you're practically in it, and everybody else has their own opinions on what their best final 3 is, and who will beat who and who will beat who. People are biased into believing they're much higher up than they are. I guarantee you, nobody except the most humble players will realize that they are on the absolute bottom. They cannot win. Nobody wants to believe they're the GOAT. And people are emotional and will make stupid mental mistakes because they're biases. They'll assume, hey, someone's stupid, I really hate the way they play, therefore they're not a threat to win the game. Or someone's really, really pissing me off, so therefore I'm going to take them out, even though they might be in a position where they're not a threat to win the game compared to me. Although, it's very, very complex and not objective, there are patterns that good players notice, and there are goals that good players make. And as I mentioned earlier, if you can keep 3 people you can beat the final 7, and 2 people you can beat the final 5, you're in a really good spot to win. And if you make sure there's 3 players ahead of you in the pecking order at final 7, you're in a good spot to win, and 2 at final 5, yada yada, as long as you can take them out. If you're in the final 5 with 2 people and you don't think you can take both of them out at final 5 and final 4, then you're not in a good position and you need to reorganize. And the reason why it's hard to know if you can take people out at certain points in the game is because of challenges, idols, and the final Shuffle Council. They fuck everything up. Mainly challenges and idols, and FTC always fucks everything up. So going back to this model, let's say you're at the final 5 and you're with this group of people and you're Bob. Nobody wants to take to the end of the game. You have no way of getting numbers. Obama, Jimmy, and Rocker will 100% of the time vote off you and Rachel. Or, Rachel might convince Jimmy and Rocker to vote off Obama. But nobody will work with you. There's no way of getting past final 4. How do you win the game? Well, you win the fucking challenge. And this is sort of the key to why challenges are really important to your game. And why challenges are important in general, and why people that say they don't matter are just objectively wrong. Challenges allow you to maintain a higher position. It doesn't matter if everybody wants you out if nobody can get you out. Not only are these important for the big threats in the end game, it is objectively necessary at Final Four. If you are the biggest threat in the game at Final Four and you cannot win a challenge, it does not matter that you played such a good game. I have a rant that I did at 4 a.m. last night. But it holds true. You can vote off big threats, and be the biggest threat in Final Four, and it doesn't matter if you can't win the challenge, which means that if you can't win a challenge, you need to plan your game in advance to make sure that you are precisely in the number 2 position at Final Four. And the number 1 will lose the challenge. That is what you have to play in advance. And this is why, good players that can win without challenges, they are really, really impressive. That's why there's so few of them, because it's really, really hard to get into that position where you can win that game. Because you have to, think about, how do I get to that Final Four? How do I get to that Final Five? All the way back from early merge. And you have to snipe that moving target from the fog around a corner, 5-6 hours in advance. Challenges allow you to be aggressive, and they are an easy way to improve your position. That's not me saying it's easy to do this. I'm just saying it's a straightforward way to improve your position. For instance, it's really easy for Obama to usurp Joe and Rachel in the pecking order if Obama's immune, and therefore Stacey can't vote out Obama. So if Obama's immune, it makes this move a lot less risky. However, that doesn't make it easier in terms of actually doing it. It just means that you're not going to get immediate repercussions. Therefore, it's a good thing to make good big moves when you have immunity, because you also get to observe the position as if you weren't there. As in, people are going to vote for each other, they can't vote for you, so you get to see what would happen if you weren't in the game. Now, that's not entirely true, because people change their minds based off of you, and since you're in the game, they might be like, okay, well, if you weren't here, I would vote somebody, but since you are, I'll vote somebody else. Yada, yada, yada. But still, you get to take a backseat in terms of, everyone else will argue at each other rather than arguing at you. Now, however, there are drawbacks to winning challenges. And these are mostly emotional-wise and mostly related to jury votes, and also related to people that do not follow the assumptions made at the start of the slideshow. Winning immunities makes people mad. Even people that are logical and rational, they get upset when you win immunities, just because, there's a part of them that is either jealous or annoyed or upset. They could have valid reasons, they could have unvalid reasons, but people will always be biased against you because, they automatically don't want to help you if you win immunity, even if it is mutually beneficial. And this is why, this example is sort of fresh in my head because it's from the other day. But after I won Pandas, Jonah was like, "Man, it's really easy to be able to make social and strategic moves when you can never be voted off." It is so not the fucking case, because when you win challenges, people hate giving you what you want, even if there's so many times in games I've told people how to win the game. This is what you need to do to win. This is what you need to do to win. This is why it helps you. This is why it helps me. People will just not listen to you because they are stupid, and they assume, hey, you won immunity, I can't give you what you want. Oh my fucking god. It's really annoying. Also, stupid people assume winning is bad and luck dependent, and I went on a huge rant in episode 1 about this. Winning is the only way to guarantee that you don't get voted off, and it's one of the only things that doesn't require any luck at all. As in, it might require luck in terms of, getting a challenge that's good for you, but if you are good at all challenges, then it's just a matter of skill. And so it's not luck dependent at all, and in fact, it's very, very good for your game. Typically, good players win a lot of challenges, and we'll get more into that later. Winning challenges can also hurt your FTC in some instances, because stupid people think you can only be good at one thing at a time and assume you're both socially inept and stupid if you win challenges. And I remember an example from Pandas the other day. There was the guy that got voted off first merge. Really, really bad player. Went to FTC, heard some speeches, asked some questions, yada, yada, yada. And Ozzy made up some bullshit about how every single time his name got thrown out, it didn't work because he got people to get off his back. Now, that sounds really, really good. But the problem is Ozzy's name wasn't out there because he didn't do anything. And so it's like, imagine, it's like, no, I'm not saying Ozzy is like hero dignity, because Ozzy's obviously a very, very good player. But in this instance, Ozzy was the weakest. Ozzy had the weakest game of the final three. And so imagine you're in the final three and hero dignity goes, I managed to get my name off the chopping block each time. It's like, well, no shit, your name wasn't on the chopping block. But the juror in question, heard that, saw me winning a bunch of challenges, and thought, he played the social game. Meanwhile, you played the physical game, as if you can only do one or the other. It's like a class, and you choose. I will win challenges, and if you win a single challenge, you are not allowed to talk. You are not allowed to strategize. It's really fucking funny, but yeah, that's a drawback. I don't think it should be the case, but it is what it is, and so I'm just pointing it out there for people that winning challenges is good, but just know that people will be on your dick for winning challenges. Um, anyways, moving on. Let's say you're a rocker and you're at the bottom of the pecking order. You cannot, at the final 9. If there was any FTC right now, you would not win it at any FTC. How do you win the game? You might be thinking, oh well, there's no hope. How the fuck do I move up the pecking order? Well, there are many ways to do this. Obviously, making good moves, making good plays will help you do that. Other people making stupid mistakes will lower themselves and thus raising you. But the best way to move yourself up is with the crazy ass idle play. Idols are the greatest tool in the game for increasing your position because it is automatically swag to have a correct idle play against somebody that otherwise would have been hard to get out. And it's hard to choose a target for this, but if you have a good one, there's nothing that can catapult you into winning the game more. It requires having one, playing it correctly, and having enough votes to prevent a split. But if you can pull it off, it allows for even more swag plays that will get you more jury cred, like minority split votes, or even the most swag of all, an even number split vote, which I think I mentioned in a previous episode, how me and Killer had this interaction at the final 8 of a Harrison season, which was really, really cool. And I didn't get to the end, but if I got to the end, I would 100% say, I did this, I deserve to win no matter what, because of that, because it's true. And another example, at least from me, and obviously everybody has their own examples of their idle plays that help their game. The only way I had a chance to win Curse of Season 9 was because of my play at Final Time. If that didn't happen, no matter how well I played afterwards, I don't think I could have won that game because I needed the jury cred from that move. Granted, idols are also the greatest tool to choke your entire game. If you idle somebody in the wrong circumstance, you look like the biggest goat in the world. So it's up to you to determine what the best move is and also to argue your reasoning and prove people wrong. And a lot of times people are just really stupid and not open-minded and just assume that if you play an idol on somebody that's more likely to win the game than you, then you're their goat. So it's up to you to convince people why they're wrong and to not back down and not be the goat that they think you are. Another way to use idols to enhance your position is just to use them like a challenge in a bottle. It's kind of boring, but it's probably the most consistent way to use an idol. Some people think it's pussy. I think if it's the right move, it's the right move. Like, I'm never going to tell people to not keep their idol to Final 5 if they're a big threat. For instance, in Pandas the other day, I had an idol, kept it to the final 6, and I used it there just as a challenge in a bottle. Didn't really do anything that cool with it. But that's what an idol is sometimes. It's a tool to help you further in the game, and that's how you should use it. A couple of mistakes that you should avoid making is that somebody is not your op if they have immunity. You should not assume that, someone's got an idol or someone's got the necklace, therefore they're against me for whatever reason. Somebody is your op if they're using that immunity to harm your game. People get really mad when you have something that they don't, but if they are helping you, then it's okay that they have that something. You are not forever indebted to someone if they idol you. However, you should probably keep them until the last possible chance, because otherwise nobody will play an idol on you ever again. The other day I idled somebody at like the final 12, and then they voted me out the final 8, and they were the third place goat because everyone was like, well, what the fuck did you do? You just sold your position in the game to fuck over your number one ally. Yeah, like, it's a really fickle thing. If somebody plays an idol on you, that doesn't mean throw your game for them, but it does mean that they probably are your good ally. It's really rare that somebody idols you, so when they do, then I would keep that in mind and help them as much as you can, because they are going to help you as much as they can. Challenges and idols don't inherently increase your position, and I say this a lot of time, and Gar makes fun of me for saying it, but it's true. It's not the immunities, it's what you do with them. There are many people that can win a lot of challenges and sit in their ass and they don't do anything. They don't increase their position. They are a tool to help you increase your position, but they do not do it by themselves. Challenges and idols make bad players mad, but coincidentally, most good players utilize them well. At least in my top 10, which I think includes a lot of people that would agree are good. There's a lot of people that are really good at challenges, and a lot of mediocre players are bad at challenges. There's plenty of people that say, oh, I prefer a good social game compared to a good challenge game. That goes back to what I said about people that assume you can only do one or the other. When people say that, it's usually because they are they're jealous. Typically, is what I think, but also just because they want to think that they're a good player, and they don't want the responsibility of making themselves a better player. So they think, oh, I'm not bad at the game because I'm bad at challenges. I'm good at the game, and challenges are actually the thing that's bad. There's nobody in particular that I'm making fun of by saying that. Jesus fucking Christ. Historically, most games are won by people who use challenges well. Like, it's very, very rare to find a winner that did not use challenges at all. And even going back to the people that have dominated the game, Slinger, back in the day, Slinger and fucking Jaden, they won a shit ton of challenges. Excellent won a shit ton of challenges. Gara wins a shit ton of challenges. There's a couple of people that didn't. Peppet won a lot of games. He didn't win that many. He's actually not that bad, is the thing. He's like completely fine at challenges. He's not great, but he's not horrible. At least in my series, a lot of my winners have won at least one challenge to get them to the end of the game. Especially at the Final Four. Like, if you're at the Final Four, you need to win the challenge to win the game if you're the biggest threat. And so it's a very, very important skill to have. And so if you are bad at them, that does not mean you are a bad player, but it means that you can be a much better player, is the way I think about it. Anyway, the last thing I want to mention is the Final Treble Council. Now, usually it doesn't matter. Usually people just look at who's in the FTC, they make their decision, usually based off of their previous jury list. But still, it's really, really important because votes can be swayed. And usually, it's not a matter of you swaying votes, it's people selling their votes. Do not sell at the last minute. Do not throw away votes that you have because you have a stupid fucking speech. Obviously, jury lists fuck everything up because people can't hear your speeches, they can't hear you argue your points. So try and get people back for your game. Emotional players will forget the entire game if you suck their dick in FTC. And there's more obvious and less obvious ways to do it. I don't think you should literally go, you played great, I loved your game so much, I played so bad. Don't be humble like that. Be humble as in, hey, I voted you off because of this. I saw you as a threat to my game for this reason. And then people will say, hey, you thought I was a threat? Man, thanks, man, because they want to be seen as a good player. That's the kind of dick sucking you should do. However, you shouldn't. I think that you shouldn't grovel for votes. You should assert yourself as to why you should get their votes. You should present your game with an appropriate level of intent. You shouldn't pretend like you controlled the entire game, you're a master manipulator, you're a super genius, because it's not true. Everybody else controlled their games. It's just that you were able to control yours better. You should provide requisite detail about how you accomplished your goals and why those goals were worth accomplishing. And that should make people want to vote you. If people have their emotional reasons why they don't want to, then you can't really control those. because sometimes it's dependent on their mood. Sometimes people are going to be in a bitter mood. Sometimes they're going to be in a really chill mood. You shouldn't push your fellow FTC members. You shouldn't attack them in their games, because if your entire speech is about somebody else, they're probably winning the game. Now, you can throw in little jabs, but they're really, really risky. And you shouldn't let somebody else push you in FTC. And if somebody tries, snap back. That is the biggest example of when you should attack other people, is when they say something at you that isn't true. Then you need to say why it isn't true, why they're saying it isn't, and why the reason they're saying it makes it so that they shouldn't win the game. So if somebody says, hey, I don't like the way you played the game like this, you should say, hey, the reason they're saying that is because it's bad for their game, because I bodied them, because I did this, and that's why you should vote me. You should defend yourself. You should play defensive and assertive. Another thing is, you should just accept that FTCs are fucking stupid now. It's a lottery if you get a good one or not, and it doesn't even depend on good, bad players. I've had FTCs full of great players that voted bitter, and I've had FTCs full of not great players. Yeah, we're really, really chill, and then they voted in a way that reflected the game played. And that's not just, for me. That's for other people. Like, I saw in Killer's games, Killer's All-Stars, not All-Stars, his Trials All-Stars, the big trial season where X-Inc won, the second season X-Inc won. It was a really, really great jury. There's people that are historically kind of bitter. They were like, you know what, X-Inc played a good game, even though we're mad at him, he deserves to win. Granted, they were also mad at the other two, but I think that even if they weren't, they still would have voted X-Inc. Meanwhile, you get a season. I'm trying to pick a season that's like not one of mine, not one of Killer's, not one of Panda's. We're kind of the only people that host nowadays. I guess I can go back into the past. There's been seasons where I can't really think of a specific season where there's been a bitter jury that's not mine, because mine just always come pushed to the top. I also don't want to pick one where like it's me being done bitter. I guess Killer. Killer gets fucked over a lot because Killer bodies people and they get mad at him. So any FTC Killer lost. Usually that's an example of when people get fucking pressed and they don't vote for you even though you steamroll them. Anyway, this was a really long and annoying fucking episode where I talk to myself. I gotta go to work soon. What time is it? Oh fuck, I gotta go work in 40 minutes. I'm fucking pissed. Anyways, to summarize this however 100 years I was talking, play in good games, don't choke the pre-merge, choose good allies per round, make good compromises, don't get pushed around, don't rely on trust, maintain a good position, win as many comps as you can, find as many idols as you can, get in a good FTC, and don't choke. You are now not stupid. Thank you for coming to my TED Talk, and if you made it this entire way through, I'll buy your fucking headache medication, and then you could vote with Sam Double and Vision when you take the headache medication. Have a good day.